the brain's a protector. And so when you have something bad happen, you have a negative emotion, it's like Velcro. Your brain just grips it and says, we're going to hold on to this one. Okay? So positive emotions are like Teflon. They slip off. Negative emotions are like Velcro. They stick to your brain. So we have to learn how to hold on to positive emotions longer.
This month's theme is spirituality in action. And it's really good that sometimes, all the time, because there is no one, and there is no other, and there is no me, and there is no we. And yet, it's important to focus sometimes on the me, and sometimes it's important to focus on the we. And we can use all of our spiritual tools and this timeless wisdom to, when I help my life, I'm helping all of yours. And when I help all of yours, I'm helping my life. Yes? Because there's only one life. And it's where sometimes we need to place our attention and our focus. And so this month, we're placing our attention and a focus on the we. And this is an incredible book. It really is. And so there's a quote in the beginning of this book from Joanna Macy that says, the most radical thing any of us can do at this time is to be fully present to what is happening in the world. You know, not do a spiritual bypass about it, not just, keep our head in the sand. And, generationally, this is a very, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps every generation, one would say, it's a critical generation, right? But it feels like for me, in my generation, or the generation of right now, it feels like it's a critical generation for us. And to understand what is happening in the world, and not just our own personal world. In this book, A New Republic of the Heart by Terry Patton, Peter read this a few months ago and totally changed our book of the month when she did. We had another one. She said, oh no, we have to read this. This book, A New Republic of the Heart, it's very current, it's profound, it's moving, it's deep. So I sincerely ask you and invite you to get this book, either in the Book Nook or on Kindle or however you want to do it. Just get the book and read it with us. He also says, I brought forward a quote from Carl Sagan, and I love this. And he says, our loyalties are to the species and the planet. We speak for Earth. Our obligation to survive and flourish is owed not just to ourselves, but also to the cosmos, for that is ourselves, right? Ancient and vast, from which we all spring. And so we're also going to have a series that begins this month. It's called Peace, Planet, and Prosperity. So towards the end of the month, this series begins. And we're going to have two special celebration services. The first one on peace, the second one on planet, and then the first Sunday in October is on prosperity. So we invite you to participate in that season of that series with us. And so today, I've asked someone to join me, and we're going to share the platform together, because the reason why this relates to the we is, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have allowed, just a few times, it's only happened once or twice in my life, I've allowed things that I actually believe are true, which aren't, to be like rocks and weigh me down, or to keep me behind, a wall so I can't really bring all of myself forward into the world. Basically, some false beliefs. and some programming that I've picked up along the way. And I think some of that programming, I didn't know it, was some pretty bad viruses in my programming. And it's proliferated, and it's gotten into actually my neurons of my brain. And when things can get into the brain, they're like a hamster wheel, and they go wee, 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 wee. I could go on for 15 minutes, right? Has that ever happened to y'all? Yeah, and so I haven't been able to bring my whole holy self forward. Now that's important for my life, but it's most important for your life that I bring my whole holy self forward. It is so important for your life, the one life, and especially, I believe, at this time. It feels like a tipping point, and I know this isn't the only time it's felt like that in human history, but it feels like one over these past few decades, and it's rattling. And so we have someone in our community that actually has a gift, and she has shared this gift with me, which I'll share a little bit, and now she's willing to give this gift to you today. And in a class she's going to start teaching soon. So I'm going to invite Dr. Jayne Gardner up to join me. She is a member of our community along with her husband, Dave. I want to give you a warm welcome because it's not every day.
Thank you. What a privilege to share time with this woman and to see her unleashed. Whoa, we thought she was already unleashed, didn't we? Woo. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I was doing pretty good this morning in being up here in front of all you guys and talking until we were about to leave and get in the car, and Dave goes, Jayne, you know, I've heard you talk a lot about all of this, but what is your real definition of authenticity? And I go, oh my gosh, I don't really have a definition. And Rev Karen had said, make sure you define all your stuff. And so I run back in the house, and I said, Wikipedia, Wikipedia. I'll find it. And then all of a sudden, Dave comes in there, and he said, honey, I think I have it. He said, I think I have it. He said, it is, and he read this out to me. He said, it is, your authentic self is who you are created to be. It's the true self, you at the core of your being, your reflection of your own divinity. Your own divinity. What this book by this lady that I know wrote actually had the definition all the time. I know. It's like sometimes we get in the way of our own authenticity, don't we? So thanks, Dave. Well, I always like to bring in science. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about science and how it can help us get more authentic or connect with our divine even more. Know that we're connected. Let me read you what scientists say we're born with. I have it in the definition in the glossary of my book. Neuroscientists use this word called ipseity. Ipseity, I-P-S-E-I-T-Y. Anybody heard of it? Yeah, I know, it was new to me too. But ipseity is defined as a sense of self without limits or restrictions, pure awareness, before the brain has been wired with beliefs. It is your potential greatness. Neuroscientists use this term to mean untouched by human imprint. Well, what they found is you're born with that. You're born with that. What happens, though, is they also did some research, and they figured out that by 2 years old, kids have learned to fake it. They already know how to have a false self. And they've learned to fake their emotions in order to please their parents. I have a perfect example of this. I have twin granddaughters, and one of them, Poppy, when she was between 2 and 3, she was a little bit older than 2, but she had already had that desire, I guess, to please her parents. The ipseity was kind of, being covered up. Well, her mother said that as we introduced solid foods, she said, I don't insist, Poppy and Nola, that you eat everything, but you have to taste it. One taste. And so you should have seen Poppy the day we introduced broccoli. Okay, now remember, she had been on, mac and cheese, cream potatoes, these soft scrambled eggs. And all of a sudden, and of course we videoed this. I don't know why we video everything, but we video everything. So we give her the stalk of broccoli in her high chair, and she looks at it, and we call it a tree, and she looks at it, and she kind of knows, I guess, that she's got to taste it. So she takes a big bite of it, probably too big a bite, and puts it in her mouth and starts to chew it. And she went from this smile to this horrible look on her face. It was like, oh. But you could see she looked at us and she knew she had to swallow it. So she didn't spit it out. She made this big effort and swallowed it. The funniest thing she said afterwards, she said, that was so good. Like that. And then she said, but don't make me eat any more of that. So, they do. We learn that, don't we? So I want to give you 3 things you can do this morning where you can get back to your more authentic self. You can wipe off some of the limiting beliefs that we all get as we grow up in a world like this.
So do you know you're part of our online community? Every time you watch us, you belong to CSL Dallas, and we're so happy that you're part of our community. And we love providing you this kind of spiritual message. So if you want to keep seeing this, please donate. You can donate at csldallas.org/give, or you can text 972-954-4404. Be part of our community and sit back and enjoy the message.
So, but before I do, I know you're a community that you want, to do things, action, spirituality in action. So I'm going to give you that. But will you indulge me for just a minute and let me tell you my story about how I had ipseity, I lost it, and then I figured out how to get some of it back at least. Okay? All right? So scientists figured out that the way to get back to authenticity, to ipseity, is narrative, right? Because when we tell our story, we tell it from our viewpoint, and we begin to see who we are and how we're different than anyone else. So let me tell you my story. So ipseity, I had it at one time. I knew I didn't want to go to church. I knew it, and I was in a small little town. The United Methodist Church was kind of our social scene, so my mom and dad, there was no choice. You went, and you loved it. Well, I did a brave thing. I did a standoff, and I hid myself in the closet, and I told them I wasn't going anymore. I said, I don't want to wear dresses. Both my brothers get to wear pants and boots. I want to wear boots. No, in those days, you didn't do that. So I just screamed in my closet, and every time they tried to take me, I screamed. My mother said it took about a year before my ipseity began to trickle away, and I began to go to church. But I knew it was a male-dominated system, and I didn't want to be there. I remember walking down the church steps one day, and my mom tells a story. She said, I looked up at her, and I said, Mom, okay, there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, this ghost man. But where is the girl part? I found the girl part over here. That's why I came here, Woo, we're here. But in that time, there weren't any girl parts. Nobody in the Methodist Church even thought about a woman being a minister. So I didn't have any role models. I didn't want to go, and I knew it. But over the years, I kind of began to get into it. It was the only place to go to really get a social life. There were boys there by the time I got to 13 or so. And I began to buy into this belief that there was this man sitting up in the sky. You know the story. This big throne, white, powerful, that was in charge of my life. So I kind of began to buy into that. So much so that I had a friend Mary Lynn, when I was 13, she tells this story. She says, Jane, do you remember we were about to go into junior high, and you told us something that I'll never forget. Now, Mary Lynn went on to MIT and graduated with a PhD, so she was a smart woman, okay? So she said, you told me, you said, Mary Lynn, as we start into junior high, I have an idea. I think that boys don't like smart girls. I was right? So I told her, I said, we need to pretend we're not smart. Well, at least Mary Lynn reframed it a little bit. She said, well, what if we just don't talk about it? That worked, you know. There I am up there with dressed to go to Sunday school. Finally got me in a dress. But I don't look happy, do I? So as life went on, I developed a disease, what Oprah calls the disease to please. You know that disease? I got it bad. I got it so bad that I stayed in a marriage for about 24 years trying to please this guy. And I thought I was doing everything right. I thought everything in my life, I thought I've pleased everybody. And of course, that's when it all falls apart, isn't it? Because basically, pleasers aren't really liked that much, except in the current moment, maybe. But it began to fall apart, and I went to who I thought would help me, because I still believed in that man sitting up in the sky. So I went to my minister, and I asked him for help. I said, I'm in this marriage. I really want to try to make it work, but my husband has filed for divorce. What can I do? And he was very prominent in the Methodist Church, had a TV show, just one of those big deals. And I couldn't wait for what he said. And he said, let me teach you how to have better sex with your husband. I believe this is a true story. If you will just have sex with me, I will show you. Yeah. So I walked to these little boots right out of his office, and I looked up who was the head of the Texas Bar Association. I went to Broadus Spivey, and I said, look, dude, I got a deal for you. We need to sue. Now, this was in the early 90s. There weren't any, me movements. I just did it. And by the time it was over, I attracted 87 women who had also been treated this way. And we won a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. We did it. Yeah. But it was not easy in those days, because my parents told me, you don't want to go up against the United Methodist Church. You don't want to ruin something that's a good thing. And it was hard. I didn't get a lot of support for it. But I did learn something. I did take God off that pedestal, and I put him in my heart. I decided that God was going to be in me, that I was going to change some of those limiting beliefs to I co-create with this majesty. So I began to change my life and get some real energy around being myself. I was an intern getting my PhD at a psychiatric institute in this area, and I began to create a process where you could find yourself, because I had lost myself. And I thought, these patients that I see, they really need to just find themselves, get back to that ipseity, right? So I created this process that I want to share with you, but there was one day that changed my life about the process. I was presenting it to a big crowd at TCU in one of the auditoriums, and I was a professor there for a couple of years, and I taught this course, and I had all these freshmen that were taking it, and I was talking about it, and I had a couple of people in the front row that were my students. Well, one of them has the audacity to ask the questions at the end. She said, Dr. Gardner, tell us how you did when you took the process. Well, guess what? I hadn't taken the process. I had just invented it, and I'd taken all these people through it, and they were doing so great. But I hadn't done it myself. I could just feel the flush coming up my cheeks, and I got out of it somehow, turned around, and hired her to take me through the process. So I did it. It's a lot harder than I thought. But I did. I rewired. There's a rewire process in it, a neuroscience-based rewire process where you take your old beliefs, your limiting beliefs, and you rewire them. So I really knew that, as we learn in the course, as you rewire and change some interaction, do some interaction, you begin to attract different things to your life. And so my life came to a really high spot when this man named Dave Bauer walked into my life. Yeah, and said, he's a good one, and said, I want you just like you are. No frills, no pleasing, just be you. And he supported me for 25 years with that, and believe me, there's been times when I've digressed, It's still there. We just have to keep shifting, don't we, Karen? Get out of it, think of being who you are. So today I want to teach you 3 different ways that you can get closer to your authenticity. You ready? Okay, and I'm going to share they're part of the process. I'm just going to give them to you because I know some of you can't take it, don't have time, it's not a good time, so I just want to give you the basis of it so you kind of get it, and you can kind of work along with us if you want to. The first one that I teach is called Writing from the Observer Point of View. Now, this is based on quantum physics. Some of you know more about this than I do, but you know that the observer effect was kind of coming around in the beginning of the 20th century, around the time, in fact, that Ernest Holmes was over here teaching Thoughts Create, the New Thought movement. Well, around the same time, there were these guys, Heisenberg and Schrodinger and Max Planck. They were over here, these scientists that were creating something called quantum physics because they discovered that when their scientists observed something, it changed everything. They took the quantum field of unlimited possibilities and they made it into one particle. They created something. And so they were really proving what Holmes has been saying for years. Science actually caught up in some extent. So I'm using a lot of quantum physics in this particular process to ground it with science because the brain is so interesting. I love studying the brain. The brain feels like it's more important if you say research. And you believe it easier than spirituality. So I've kind of tried to combine the two for you. Okay? So here's how you do it. When you write from the observer point of view, it's simply turning it around your journaling, and you write from the third person. Okay? So you get up early in the morning, maybe before you've really looked at your email, before you fed your kids or gone for coffee even, and you start to just let it all pour out what you're thinking. But you use third person, you would say, if I was writing, I would say, Jane woke up this morning and she was very excited about what was going to happen, and she blah, blah, blah. So write about your life using third person. You're just going to be amazed at the way it gives you some distance to see yourself, and you also see what your thoughts are actually creating. You watch them kind of unroll when you write that like that. I think it was a basic part of the course, right, Karen?
Yes. So Jane's been my personal coach now for, 6-8 months. Mm-hmm. She's been gifting it to me so that I can be more of me, so I can be more of me for you. And that was one of the first things she asked me to do. And little did she know, I really don't like journaling. I don't like journaling.
Yeah.
I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But she said, just trust me, please do this. And so I started the practice of journaling in the third person, which I had not ever done before. No one had asked me to do that. And I started journaling each morning, like she's saying, in the third person. And at night, how was the day for Karen, and talking about Karen and writing about that. And on the days, I started getting a little more and more consistent, and I could see that it's shifting something and how I'm perceiving myself.
Yeah.
And then this rewire retreat that is at just the crucible for me of this whole process that she's developed. I had to write. There were 4 stations, and one of them was writing, and I had to write a lot. My hand almost fell off over these 3 days.
You loved that talking station, though, didn't you?
Yes, I love the talking station.
Yeah.
But this, I really, it makes such a difference to be the observer in the third person when I'm writing about it. It's one of the most powerful things that has been new to my life, because I've always journaled in the first. Like, oh, I didn't like it when, so-and-so said this. And it's like, Karen didn't like it when, it's unbelievably powerful. So yes.
It backs you off from
Yes.
what you normally would
see more.
Yeah, it detaches you, like
Yes.
as the Buddhists would say. Well, the second point, the second tool I want to teach you is what Reverend Karen also went through. And I have it listed as seek first who you are not. Well, we had to uncover the negative part of her. Because in neuroscience, negatives rule in the brain. And if you avoid them, they're going to get bigger. And I know a lot of you say, well, why would you write about negative? Because then you're going to create something negative. But it doesn't work that way. If we avoid it, it goes into our subconscious, and that's really where we create from. So I helped her decide, what is it the name of the part of you that sabotages you, that gets you off course? Because we need to start talking to that part of you and put it in place and turn it around where your authentic self is in charge of what we call your conditioned self. And so that was part of what we worked on. And part of what you can do is to start thinking about writing down your negative feelings in the morning. Start with that. Jane felt nervous this morning that she was going to be making this presentation, and write about it. Get it out. Let it go. Neuroscience say, approach, don't avoid your negative feelings. So make that turn in your head, in your writing, and I think you're going to see release of negativity. How'd you do with that?
So I'm going to do my best to speak to this as it relates to me and how Jane helped me. So one of my parental units, parental units. The thing about one of my parental units is that this person always, and I rarely use that word, but for the most part, so let's say 99.5% of the time, leads with the negative. And I grew up with that, so much. And decades and decades of leading with the negative, and seeing the negative, and talking about the negative, and spreading the negative. I mean, it didn't matter what it was. And then maybe the good would be pointed out, but it was the lead. And that pattern got in me. And then I find Science of Mind, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I had yet to be able to unhook this until I met Jane and her process, to the degree that she has helped me unhook it. And I love this, that if I don't bring forth what doesn't serve me, then that's really going to have great impact. And so through her divine intelligence process, and again this rewire portion within it, I spent a lot of time on talking to, on writing to, on speaking to, on physically doing some things. You have to take the course and be ready for it. But this whole thing, and I'm not talking just specifically about the parental unit. I'm off that now. I'm talking about everything within me that I know that that's not who I am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there were many times that when Peter and I got together that she would say, and I would bring those patterns forward, and they would be in my life, and it's in your life when you're with me, and I would be there, and she would say, that's not who you are. And I would even get triggered by that and say, ugh. I could feel the resistance, like I wanted to say, but it is. But I knew it wasn't, right? But I didn't have a way to work through it and to let it go, these patterns and the wiring within me that actually somehow I picked it up, especially from the parental unit, and that is who I am in the world. And that's not who I am. And God knows it's not who I want to be. And so I've brought it forward. I was so afraid of letting anger out. A spiritual person doesn't get angry. That's what I thought.
Maybe a little bit.
And so I did. I unleashed it. And through this process that she's talking about, that I looked at the stuff that I am not, it dissolved it in the almost 99.5, maybe 80, 90%, but I'm still working on it. But, but the big rocks, this who I am not got obliterated.
It's like you begin to have a tool at least to shift out of
Yes.
it, to recognize that that's me, but I don't want to be that person, and I'm going to shift out of it.
Yeah, I never forget the first time she did this in one of our sessions, and she said, okay, I want you to move to this chair. I went, okay. Now your conditioned self is right there, right? I want you to talk to your conditioned self. And what would your conditioned self say? Boy, did I know what my conditioned self would say. And she kept working with this conditioned self. She brought it forward. We worked with that, and then she moved to, but what about your authentic self? And so now, because I have these tools, when I see my conditioned self show up, the authentic self steps right in.
You've got that conversation going now. Instead
Yes.
of just a dialogue, you've got a dialogue instead of just one
So
thing.
what would you say
Yeah.
for them to do this?
Yeah. Well, let me read the quote, because I studied the Gnostic Gospels a lot to come up with the premises of this. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. So most of the clients that I work with now at this point in my life are influencers. I work with CEOs, with people that influence other people, and I have to be bold enough to confront them on what I see that they don't see. I always walk this kind of a fine line as a coach between getting hired and getting fired, But somebody's got to tell you. So in your writing, start to write down who you think you're not. Really, you're not that way, but the patterns are there. You have been in ugly patterns. Start to say, oh my gosh, when I said that wasn't me. And start to define your conditioning. Mine was a pleaser, and it gets ugly in a pleaser's life, believe me. Yeah, it can get really ugly. So when I see that, now I know it, I've deputized Dave to tell me when he sees that pleaser, and I don't like it at all when he says that, and I'll fight it, but he's right, and so I begin to open it up and see it. So what you can do in your writing is to write down who you think you're not, and begin to put a name around it. We name it. It can be a critic of you. It can be a perfectionist that insists you do it right. It can be someone that avoids every conflict you could consider, that doesn't want a conflict. It could be anything, but I encourage you to discover it, to uncover it. And there's even a little personality test on my website you can take and figure out who you're not in a general pattern. So I welcome you to do that, because I want you to know you can step out of it. It doesn't have to control you anymore. So third tool, and this is a really fun one, and again, it's a neuroscience principle, but here's what happens with emotions. In the brain, positive emotions that we really want to hold on to and keep, what the neuroscientists say is they're like Teflon. They just slip right off the brain. Those happy times, those knowing who you are, those moments of really greatness that you have, you let them go quite quickly. Because the brain's a protector. And so when you have something bad happen, you have a negative emotion, it's like Velcro. Your brain just grips it and says, we're going to hold on to this one. Okay? So positive emotions are like Teflon. They slip off. Negative emotions are like Velcro. They stick to your brain. So we have to learn how to hold on to positive emotions longer. As you uncover your negative self, in order to have this authority that's within you, you have to learn to be positive, and you have to learn to do what we call savor a positive memory. So, indulge me for a moment. Let me take you to a positive memory for just a second. Close your eyes. It'll only take a second. And pretend you're in a movie theater. The lights have kind of dimmed and you're about to see the movie. The curtains open. And all of a sudden, you are seeing this movie of yourself. And it's a movie of a time in your past when you did something you're so proud of. You were going, atta girl, atta boy. And you knew you had done something great. It could be walking across the stage for a degree acceptance. It could be having a child. It could be a conversation with that child that just you knew you said the right thing. It could be helping someone through death. It could be all of those good things that you do, but settle on one of them for just a minute. Pick out one memory that you know you were good in that particular time because you know you're good. And raise your hand when you have that one memory. Let's see how you're doing. Okay, cool. Okay, now hold on to it. Now what I'd like for you to do, while you still have your eyes closed, I want you to freeze frame the movie in the highest definition and at the moment of its peak, right when you know, wow, that was it. I sold that. I made that project. I overcome fear, and I did this. Just freeze frame it. See it in your mind as one picture. And I want you to put a black frame around it. And I want you to take your right hand and just press that picture into your heart. Hold on to the feelings that it elicits and just press it in there for a minute and savor it. Savor it. It's a time when you did it. Good. Now, you can open your eyes. I've just given you what's called a neural anchor. This is the third tool I want to give you. And you have millions of neural anchors. But remember, the brain doesn't really help you remember them too much. It goes to when you did something wrong or when you goofed up. So you're going to have to work at this. You're going to have to, when you walk out the door today and you see this beautiful day, you're going to have to savor it and say, this is a day when I'm going to be in my authenticity. I'm going to live my divinity today. And I'm going to hold my brain focused on that so that I can be who I am, the real me. What do you think, Rev Karen? You remember those neural anchors and your authentic self?
Yes, I do. You know, this process has what Jane calls dialogues, and so it's step by step. You know, you get to work through them, and part of these dialogues would ask for those memories to come up and to really remember them. And it was great to remember them from my childhood, to remember them from, I have a few from my 20s and 30s, and some recent. And when things come up now and I start to wobble or wiggle a little bit or back off, I call it, just sort of play small, back off, go to fear, I use those now as an anchor, like, well, remember when You know, you jumped off the bridge, a very good bridge in New Zealand, bungee jumping, and
Oh,
what that
yes.
was,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
or
Yes.
whatever. You know, it's like these anchors, like, remember what that experience was. You weren't afraid of that. And how did that turn out? Oh, my God, that was so cool. And so I can just now bring up, I have about 4 or 5 of them, and it's like, it's almost as if I just plugged into the universe and life itself, and it's like, and then I go,
Yeah.
bam!
Yeah,
You
the
know?
energy that this woman has. It's so much fun coaching you through this process, and I'm just so humble that you would go through it with me and that you would let me share it with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, so I really want to share that Jane has also been coaching Petra, totally separate. So she's been coaching both of us. And we share some things. We don't share everything, but, you know, we've shared things in the process. But for me, at this Rewire retreat, so if you take this class, they get the Rewire retreat, they're told how to do
Yes.
it? Okay,
Yes.
just making sure. I don't want to sell something you're not going to offer. So anyway, she said, you have to do this. She gave me clear instructions, and I went off to a friend's place out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I mean, nowhere. I drove, and I'm like, really? Is there going to a place somewhere? And no restaurants around, took my own food,
No
all
distractions.
that. No distractions, couldn't, no phone, nothing. And I went out there and set up my stations and did this. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that when I got to the end of that Rewire retreat, that which I am was unleashed. And I felt the energy of it. I actually named it, my authentic self. I named my authentic self. I had one other, I thought. Okay, well, there you go. I named my authentic self Aslan. Anybody know Aslan from C.S. Lewis, The Chronic Narnia? So I am a Leo. I've been a lion. I have this roar. And with this Rewire retreat, I will not forget that I stood out in the middle of nowhere and I started like roaring and I said, I am Aslan. And I just kept doing it because I had done all this work and all the weight and all the rocks and all the stuff that had been holding me back. And I just stood out there and I just roared, I am Aslan. And I could know that I am in my authentic self, like it was anchored. It was anchored. And people, since no one knew I'd really done that other than Petra and Jane and a couple of people. But it's so interesting that after that, this was a few months ago, y'all just started going, what is going on with Karen? Oh my gosh, she's just, boom. And it's like, yes. And like I've let Aslan just stay. And it's because of this process and working with her. And Aslan is like this authentic self for me. And it struck me this morning as I saw Anita. Anita is here. So I remember Anita last fall, so we're coming up on almost a year at the practitioner retreat. It was like this other anchor. We had a process, and I sat in front of Anita, and she said something to me, and she referred to the lion. So this was, well before and she said, this lion is about to be unleashed. You said that, didn't you, Anita?
Wow.
And she said, I can feel it. You haven't even begun. This was before I started working with Jane.
It's amazing.
I didn't even know about this process, and you see what I'm saying? And it was like, she said, it's going to be unleashed. And it has been. Now, I still have to keep Aslan present at all times as best I can. But you know what? She was going to teach a class here. First of all, it does cost, but she's gifting all the money to this community. I want you to know that. Yeah. She wouldn't ever tell you that. And she probably is upset because I just said that. And we'll still be friends, won't we? And she was going to only have 10 people go through this. She was going to limit it. Then I heard 20. And now she's decided she's not going to limit it. And it can be online. So even people not in this community. And she's going to walk people through this process because, and this is where we come into this together, because at such a time as this, we all must unleash ourselves. We can no longer afford to hold ourselves back for our own lives, for our children's lives, for Poppy's life,
Exactly.
you know, for our grandkids' life, for this planet's life, for our neighbor's life. We cannot. So if you won't do it for yourself, do it for us.
For the world. For the world.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we use the tools that we've been given. We've used the tools that we are gifted. We use the tools that we talk about here. And this so aligns what she's doing, this divine intelligent process, with the science of mind. So I'm selfishly wanting you to take this course, right? Because it has helped me. And if it helps you a mere fraction of what it's done for me, then that's a great thing. And I am so grateful.
Well, I have a bigger goal.
Okay?
I think I've
she
shared
has a
with
goal.
you.
She has a vision.
Yeah, I have a vision, and it came to me a couple of years ago. I've taken 3,000 or 4,000 people through this, and all of a sudden it hit me that when people go through it, they lose their reactivity. They get calmer amygdalas. They get their limbic system calms down. And so I thought, what if the universal mindset could shift a little bit and calm down with all this raging that we have? So I decided to look it up, and the spiritual tipping point is 15%. So I decided that my goal in life was to get this out to 15% of the world. Now, I know it's huge, and it's overwhelming, and someone once told me, if your goal doesn't involve other people, it's not big enough. So I need you. I know some of you have gifts you could help with. You have many things you could do, not just take the process. But I would love to get to where that turn comes, where we cool down this planet a little bit. I think it could impact the ecology. I think it could change everything for us. So I'm willing to dedicate the rest of my life to that. So if any of you have ideas, I would love to hear them, how you could help.
And when does your Divine Intelligent Process class start?
Okay, it's a week from this Friday.
A week from this Friday.
Is that, I'm not sure. September 9th.
It's a Friday?
No, it's a Monday. I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry.
September 9th,
Yeah, thank
9/9, my wedding anniversary. Easy to remember, 9/9. Get in that class.
There we go. So a week from Monday. And so I'd love to see you there. And let me know even if you need a scholarship. We've worked out some people. So if you want to be there, you can. I already know that.
Yay. So thank you for bringing your spirituality and putting it into action and working with me and working with Petra, because our ministry has benefited, our marriage has benefited, our whole life has benefited. And she has unleashed something that she hadn't been able to dislodge until she worked with you. Mm-hmm. And so we really wanted to bring Jayne forward into the spotlight so that you will know that she is bringing this gift to all of us. And I know that it's going to serve you. The 3 things she mentioned today, you can put into action right now. Mm-hmm. And it's time to put this spirit into action once and for all. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jayne.
Love you.
I love you. So let's do a quick prayer. Scott, let's do that, and is there anything that you want me to bring forward in this? Just shout it out. The planet. Peace. Love and harmony. Compassion. Courage. Someone over here I couldn't hear? I can't hear. Family. Okay, good. Got it. You don't go too far with the shotgun approach. And by the way, I'm teaching the power of the Word. You can take that. Shannon Kern's teaching Treat Yourself to Life. That's also on spiritual mind treatment. We need more prayer warriors. We're all practitioners. We all are practicing this. Some of us carry a license to carry, a license to speak the Word. It's a great thing because we take aim and we hit the target. So let's just go within to that infinite field, that field of grace, that field of love, that field of harmony, that field of peace. For it is the one life, it is the one power, it is the one presence, and there is nothing that stands against it, for it's for itself. It's for its own good. It must be for its good, or else it would not exist. And it is alive, and it is awake, and it is unleashed. And what I know to be true about life is it is this place, this omnipresent thing that shows up as love, and it shows up as peace, and it shows up as harmony, shows up as courage to be itself. And as I know that God is this, that Spirit is this, I know that I am that I am. I am the spot where the peace, the harmony, the love, the courage, that which unifies, shows up and is conscious of itself through me and through each of you. For we are the spot where life awakens to itself, knows itself, sees itself, feels itself, expresses itself. And so by the power and the authority of the divine intelligence, that which is, I speak the word for this planet, for Mother Earth, for this beautiful, beautiful blue marble in the solar system of this cosmos that knows precisely how to take care of itself, and it needs humanity to care for it. We must waken to this awareness and be a part of this and work in harmony and take care of our animals and our trees and our streams, our water, our air, our soil, and everything about it, so that life itself flourishes and thrives. I know that there is a family. We are all one family, and anything that makes us think that we're not family, can it just get out of the way now? We are one human family. And within the one human family, we have this close-knit family. And we know that our families are guarded and protected, supported and surrounded. And I speak the word for each of us and know that we are in our wholeness, and we are in our health, and we are in our abundance. Right here and right now. I celebrate our life, individually and collectively. I call it good, I call it forth, and I let it loose, releasing these words, knowing this is so, and so it is.